Hey everyone, this is Wild and Woolly Gaming coming to you today to share with you some really big news. War Thunder's adding a Chinese tech tree. While I think this is some of the biggest news the game has had in a while, I don't think it's the most exciting news. Personally, I'll go over why in a few moments. It's not as exciting, for example, as in my opinion, as the F4 and the MiG-21 being announced yesterday, August 29th. But hey, it's still really big news, really exciting, especially because a lot of people might want to grind out another tech tree, and there's a lot of options available. So you're going to have access to the People's Republic of China, otherwise known as China, and the Republic of China, otherwise known as Taiwan. And as you can see here, Taiwan, or the Republic of China, has a lot of American vehicles, whereas the People's Republic of China also has a lot of Soviet vehicles. And the reason being is because there's a split there. So the People's Republic of China, which is mainland China, they claim that Taiwan is a part of their territory, but Taiwan claims to be independent, so on and so forth. I'm not getting into the politics of it. However, it's there are differences in the weapons that they do have, and historically speaking, since I believe it was the 40s, there have been the Taiwan and Taiwanese government has been more historically supported by the American forces and other allied nations of the Americans, whereas China, yeah, at least in large part, has at least purchased and licensed built more Soviet vehicles. So this does make sense. Now, where this brings a lot of variability here, and I think this is an interesting decision, is that China, or not China, Gaijin, my apologies, Gaijin seems to be doing this, at least in my opinion, in part because China is a growing video game market. They're huge. I mean, you have to admit, if your country has a tech tree, you're more willing to play it, right? And where this brings in some variability is, as you can see here, before you did not have the option of, let's say, playing with the Soviets and the Americans in the same lineup. Let's say if, for example, like me, you want to play arcade, you can now play the T-34 alongside a version of the M4 Sherman, which I think opens up a ton of possibilities and it really makes gameplay a bit more interesting. So while these are already created vehicles, you will now have the option of implementing them into battle in different ways, and I think that's awesome. And the same goes for aerial combat. There's actually, at least right now, there's more, American style weapons in these tech trees, or at least in the aerial tech tree, and I think that makes sense. Americans were more, I guess you could say, air air combat oriented, whereas Soviets, even today, Russians, even today, have a significant amount of ground forces, and they actually, according to many estimates, have significantly more tanks in their modern army than the Americans do, which makes sense because they're a land based country, whereas America is surrounded by two oceans. Regardless of geopolitics aside, I think again this is a really interesting sort of decision, and again it really just opens up a ton of gameplay options. And Gaijin actually said in a social media post that we will be able to, have experience more native Chinese designs when they said modern aircraft, right? So somebody was asking, hey, why are all these, American and Soviet designs, why would you even add this tech tree? It makes sense. Why would you want to add this tech tree? But it's because I think they're looking to the future as well, and there are more Chinese designs, albeit some of them look fairly similar to other planes, like the Americans F-22. But whatever. One interesting thing, though, and a question I would have for Gaijin is why didn't you add the Swedish tree? That was actually pretty well rumored. I would say almost equally so, maybe even more so than the Chinese tech tree for 1.91, or a relatively upcoming or soon update. But I guess they're not adding Sweden. I think Sweden has a lot more variability, at least in terms of you know just in general, being that they have a lot of homegrown vehicles and weaponry, believe it or not. So that would have been an awesome choice. I think Sweden probably should have gotten in this this update. But either way, I think China is a great choice as well. It really adds a lot of ability for you to customize your gameplay because you can now pick between essentially during the Cold War what would be two opposing nations. The Chinese tech tree now has all of those vehicles in one, so it's a really cool option, and I'll think I'll have a lot of fun playing it. Anyways, thanks guys. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me what you think. Tell me if my commentary is spot on. I think this is a cool addition to the game, and I'm pretty excited for it. Anyways, again, like, subscribe, and see you guys in the sky. Take care.